Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I am surprisingly here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
Who crawled out of her sick bed because it's time for a daily dose of Dismal Disney.
Hey, if it's talking smack about Disney, barfing up a lung is not going to stop me from having words.
So she is very sick. Bear with her. We're going to talk about the Disney Annual Shareholder Meeting, which you watched. I actually didn't get a chance to watch it.
I watched most of it. I turned it off because I got so sick. When I was hearing the questions and I could see Iger's response was kind of shit, I turned it off.
Yeah, so it sounded like a lot of, from what you were telling me, a lot of deflection. We're going to talk about, the situation with Florida. We're going to talk about the situation with China. There's a lot of things going on. Disney's getting it from all sides at this point, and they really need to watch what they say going forward. But let's talk about this. So before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture, news, views, and rants, guys. We talk a lot about Disney, having worked in and around the company for a number of years.
Right, we did it before it was cool.
We've been dunking on Disney since before it was cool. Everybody else is jumping on the bandwagon now. And we actually got in a lot of trouble for calling Disney out as being the company they've shown themselves to be back in like 2017, 2018. And now everybody else is starting to catch up. So some validation, I guess, doesn't help, but there we go. So let's talk about this.
Okay, so it started out with this stupid Disney rah-rah commercial where it was like they were playing flashes of different shows and playing Walt's speech and one of his speeches and everything else, and they're trying to play up this whole "we're for you, we're about you, we're about your family, we're here for you always." They're here for your wallet. Let's not make any mistake about it. It's just meant to pull on your heartstrings, be like that nostalgia you feel for Disney, because everybody feels that for what Disney was,
for what they were. Yes.
And they were trying to play on that. So immediately I was like, oh, here we go. And then we get Iger on here, and the whole beginning of the meeting was him talking about how they're bringing the company back to creativity. Keep that in mind. They're returning to creativity. They're restructuring so that the creative branches have more autonomy, so they can do things and not be, centralized, and then get back to making new things.
Right.
Except when they start talking about all the great things coming that he usually leads the meeting with, we got what are the great things coming? The Tron coaster's already open. The walk-through water attraction at Epcot that really no one cares about because Moana. Because they're going to triple down on Moana. Because remember, they're bringing Moana to Animal Kingdom too, and it's like apparently she's going to be everywhere. And then we're going to get to Moana again in a minute. And then they talked about Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Here's a trailer, and then finally a big announcement with Dwayne Johnson, who plays Dwayne Johnson in every movie, talking about how he's going to be play Maui in the live action Moana movie because everybody was fucking asking for a live action Moana movie. My daughter heard the announcement from the other room. Her exact words were, "No, why do we need that? That movie's not even 7 years old." That was my 15-year-old daughter.
That is crazy. Yeah, like they're not even wasting time now.
But they're talking about the creativity, and their first creative move is we're going to make a live-action version of Moana. That's their creativity.
So what are they going to do, Encanto next year then?
No, I'm just saying, then why bother making animated films at all?
Oh no, that'll be the next logical step. It'll be like, why bother making the animated films and all? We can just make them all in live action.
Because they're not going to be as beloved in live action, and they know it. So instead of just making good movies that have to be live action and good movies that happen to be animated, no, every animated movie, even if it's only a few years old, needs a live action reboot. Okay, so then after that, we're going to get to that. So after that, then he starts on they did the voting, and they had some different people that were putting forward. Nothing was like the level of Peltz. No. And a lot of people were complaining about the fact that Disney's not very transparent in some of the choices they've made of late.
Yes.
Have been very divisive and has cost the company, especially in regards to the Florida issue. And they were voted down, and the board made sure every time they had someone read a statement, we do not, we don't want you to vote that way, or we don't agree with voting yes for this, or vote no, or whatever they said. I can't remember. I'm sick. Cut me a break. And then they went to asking questions. So the questions were interesting. People call in the questions. And of course, they've been making this big deal about this one girl who goes to every board meeting, I think, on the phone, because it's not like she's in person.
Yeah.
And because she's been doing it since she was a kid, there's this news story about it the other day, and she gets asked the first question, and Bob Iger falls all over himself to answer her question.
Now, what if it had gone the other way? What if she'd been like, why are you so woke, Bob? Why so?
Oh
woke?
yeah, I know. Well, the one person from Florida, they went to ask a question, and then they couldn't talk. Like their call got dropped, and then another person after that said that his call had been dropped in many calls before, asking about the big pass that you go about Disneyland, Disney World for. I forget what it is off the top of my head. Like I said, I'm sick of the dog, and I'm barely standing up. But he was talking about that pass and how he'd been trying to get an answer on it. And basically, Bob Iger said, "Well, there wasn't enough interest in it, so we dropped it." But the guy said that he had his calls dropped. When he's called before. And then one person from Florida. So it was like, Florida, their calls dropped. Well, that's coincidental. Yeah. And then another person from Florida gets on there and basically is like, hey, what's going on with this whole thing with, with DeSantis and the stuff going down in Florida? And that's what's leading us into all this because Neon wasn't here. He just heard me ranting about it to him on Messenger.
Yeah, so there are a couple different takeaways here depending on what side of the aisle you're on. Hollywood is like, yeah, hey, Disney's going to stick it to DeSantis. They outmaneuvered DeSantis, but he's going to retaliate, and it's a stinky thing for him to do.
Here's my thing on this, and I said this before. Disney should never have had the power of Reedy Creek as long as they had.
Yeah.
They never should have had this as long as they've had this. It's unbelievable and unfair they've had this long. Meanwhile, the state of Florida, and it's not just a DeSantis thing, it's before him, they should have done something about this years ago. They didn't do something about it until Disney, so Bob Chapek, overstepped and then threatened that they were going to, basically make laws, which corporations, that was really dumb.
Yeah.
And then I think that DeSantis, went overboard as well. But the thing is, Reedy Creek shouldn't have been there. We had the first responders, which no one's mentioning that. The first responders talking about how they've been screaming for help from Disney for a while and they wouldn't give it to them, which I can tell you for a fact as someone who's covered this for years, that is true. And Disney wouldn't give them the help. And now the state of Florida gets to pay for all that and Disney gets all the rewards. And there's a lot of these people applauding this. Like, Disney did something underhanded and shitty. Yay, go Disney. Here's the thing. This sets a precedent for other corporations that you can overstep as long as you're like the biggest taxpayer in the area. You could overstep too. And you could undermine the government too. And that's a problem. And y'all are cheering for it now. The problem is when it becomes an issue later on, something that you care about, that, that the corporation comes in and you want clean water. Well, they want to put a pipeline or they want to do something to the water or they want to use it for Nestle or whatever. And the company pays more taxes than you do. So they can make an agreement on the underhanded agreement in the back end to stick it to the government and make sure they get what they want. You're not going to be too happy then. So you're setting a precedent and it's going to turn around and bite you in the ass. So be careful what you cheer for because it's probably going to bite you in the ass later.
Yeah, there's a precedent. I mean, look, I am on the fence about this whole situation with DeSantis and Disney.
I think both of them went too far initially.
Yeah, I think it's become a pissing.
Disney really overwent.
It's going to become a pissing match that Florida is going to pay dearly
for.
I think.
Exactly.
The citizens of Florida are going to pay dearly for. The taxpayers are going to pay dearly. I think before it's all said and done. But the thing is that it is dangerous in the fact that a corporation has that much power. It's also dangerous in the fact that the government can just yank power away from a private company because both are not ideal.
No, they're not. But neither is a private company shouldn't have had the power.
They shouldn't have.
They were given.
They were basically granted, like Star Wars, they were granted emergency powers, and it became a permanent thing. And they had way more power than anybody else in Florida. And it's interesting though because I caught this. Yeah, Iger's basically taking credit for Orlando.
He takes credit for a lot of shit. Wait, go ahead.
Orlando's always been one of my favorite spots. It used to be nothing but a remote swampland before Disney stepped in, and thanks to those who dare to dream.
He backhands like Florida. I think we love Florida. Well, the question was being asked is my son lives in Orlando, is his taxes going to go up? He never answered the damn question. He just went on about all the stuff that Disney does for Florida and Disney, because it was very arrogant.
It's interesting though, because he said it was anti-business and anti-Florida.
It's okay when they do it, but it's not okay when your elected officials do it.
Right. Now, this is what gets me though, because I'm seeing a lot of other people on Twitter and YouTube being like, this is a sign that Disney's walking back the woke. I'm like, no.
He just basically slapped you down and said it was our freedom of speech. We pay a lot in taxes, so we're being infringed upon.
Diversity is a real priority for us. Expressed his desire that Disney continues to create content that promotes greater understanding and greater acceptance.
Well, maybe it'll provide content that provides that stuff. It has greater box office returns. Because every time you try to shoehorn this stuff and make it that's what your movie's about, not about a good movie, it's just you keep focusing directly on these things, then your box office returns suck. As a shareholder, do better.
So then he had to remind Florida of where its place was.
Right, exactly what he did.
We're planning to invest $17 billion over the next 10 years. So this sounds like it could be another park.
Well, that's what I said. Yeah, it sounds like they're 10 and then 13,000 new jobs. Well, Universal Orlando is bringing 14,000 with Epic Universe.
Yeah.
So this sounds like he was trying to bait the hook. Look, if you want another park, you let us do what we want.
Our point is that any action that thwarts those efforts simply to retaliate against a position the company took sounds not only anti-business, but anti-Florida.
What, getting rid of their special interest district that they shouldn't have had this long was a way to retaliate against them. Basically, you didn't get what you wanted. You were constantly getting special privileges over everybody else because you were Disney. And then you lost the special privileges, which honestly you should have lost a long time ago. I've said this multiple times. It shouldn't have got to DeSantis. It shouldn't have been them making DeSantis mad this got fixed. It should have been fixed decades ago. And then you're going to be like, well, we didn't get our own way, so it's anti-business. You just basically told the state of Florida, it doesn't matter who you elect, Disney can do whatever the hell Disney wants.
Because that's the way it's been.
Yes!
That's the way it's been for decades.
That's why DeSantis is standing up to him. I don't like DeSantis. I'm going to tell you straight up. I think he went way too far in this situation. I think he pushes too hard the other way a lot of times. That being said, I have to side with him on this one.
I think what is going to happen, again, and I've said before, this is going to be a pissing match. DeSantis wants to be president. Mm-hmm. He cannot back down from Disney if he wants to, show that he's a strong president or presidential candidate. So he's going to be like, because if he backs down from freaking Disney, what's he going to do when there's a foreign power trying to invade? You know what I'm saying?
But Disney's overstepping massively.
They are.
And then trying to say that they're doing it in the name of freedom. And if you're anti-American, if you don't side with Disney, who does a lot of shit they shouldn't do.
This reminds me of the CEO. You talked about Nestle, the CEO of Nestle being like, well, water's not a human
That's
right.
exactly what this reminds me of. That's what I'm telling this. That's what I'm thinking of. People were like cheering this on. I'm like, that. You know where this path leads? It leads to Nestle. That's where this path leads.
And you're going to get crunched.
Yeah, I'm just like, you're celebrating. I mean, I've been around a long time. I mean, not that long. I'm not old or anything. But I've been around long enough to see that, just because you think you got your wish for it might bite you in the ass later.
Look, Disney's getting it from all sides. So, yeah, for those of you who missed the memo on the whole DeSantis thing, basically Disney pulled a fast one on DeSantis. The exiting board
they were like in bed with Disney.
Yeah, they wrote some language into the power transference documentation, whatever the hell it was. It basically said Disney still has power, even though Florida's taken over. Florida can foot the bill; they can pay the bills, but Disney gets final say.
Yeah, no, nowhere though. Is that okay? Basically, Florida State and people can pay for all the shit and everything else. They can pay for their emergency personnel. They can pay for the roads and all that crap. But Disney gets to make all decisions about everything else, and it's like that's not going to fly anywhere.
Yeah, so now DeSantis is coming back hard on Disney. This is going to be going on for a while. I mean, this could be months, years.
The kicker was Disney could have just worked. They could have just worked together, and then they probably just would have worked with them. It wouldn't have been that big a deal. But then they had to go do this, and I think they made it a much bigger deal than it was or before that.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't know where this is going to... I'm going to be completely honest. I don't know the legality of it. I've had people tell me... I've had some people, and again, it comes down to where you're at politically.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's politically where you're at.
It's your truth.
I'm in the middle, and I think you both went too far. I think a lot of people are going to be caught up in this shit, and I think that, and I ultimately think though, no matter what, Disney shouldn't be telling the government. You have a private company, basically taking power away from the government by the way they wrote something that they did underhanded before the government took over that they didn't want to lose. Yeah. And now they get to dictate everything. On what planet? Have you seen movies? Someone else mentioned on Twitter. Have you seen RoboCop? Because that's how you get RoboCop.
Yeah, I've been talking about RoboCop I just rewatched all the RoboCop movies a couple months ago. I've been talking about RoboCop for a while now because that is OCP. The company came in and they were running the Detroit government, and this is what happens. But they are Florida.
They pay more taxes than anybody, and since they pay more taxes, that means they get more say. And that's not how this works. That's not how democracy works, Bob.
Well, whatever went down, it didn't really help their stock much. Their stock actually is down after hours. Now it might go back up. Who knows? I'm looking at their box office forecasts, and they don't have a lot of hits lined up.
No.
So
the
here
hits keep coming, but not in that way.
Well, here's another hit for Disney. This is a bipartisan lawmakers plan private meeting with Disney CEO Bob Iger and other business leaders to discuss U.S. and China trade. And of course, they're meeting with Apple too. This is coming from WDW News today. They said they're going to plan a 3-day trip to California to meet privately with Bob Iger and a number of other top tech execs to discuss the escalating tension between the U.S. and China over IP and trade issues. Now, Bob Iger is
China's ass.
famously pro-China, right? Let's just put it that way. And, Shanghai was his baby, and they bet on the Chinese box office. And people have questioned his loyalties because he does seem to have a lot of ties to the CCP. But they say, according to Axios, a delegation of 10 lawmakers will be led by Republican Mike Gallagher, chairman of the newly formed House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party. Thank you, TikTok. The politicians will first meet with Bob Iger on Wednesday to discuss the company's relationship with China. They have 2 parks over there, followed by meetings with Hollywood producers.
Well, not just the parks. They've been trying desperately to get their movies over there.
Yeah. It's not going very well for them.
Meanwhile, well, someone called them out on the one call too about the fact that they were filming near, the Uyghur re-education.
Oh, the re-education
centers,
camps for people who, oopsie.
Yeah. They were on that for Milan, and they thanked the Chinese government and everything else. And every time someone asked these questions, they would, in that case, it was more like that was one of the ones they weren't voting on. But when they asked Bob a question like this, he would just dance around it.
Yeah. He likes, that's the thing. I don't think things would have gotten to the level they got to in Florida if Bob Iger had been in charge, but he likes to dance around the issue. He likes to make everybody think they're winning, but in reality, Disney is the only one that comes out ahead.
Well, it was fun. It was interesting to me too, because when the one person asked the question about DeSantis, he made all the comments he made about, you're anti-Florida. And he's like, and that's pretty much what to say about that. Thanks, bye. And hung up on the guy.
Yeah, that's
his attitude was so arrogant. Like, there were so many ways you could handle that, and his attitude was so arrogant that even if for somebody who's so diplomatic, there's better ways he could have handled it, and he didn't.
So, they've been talking about how Disney's been kowtowing to China. I remember this. Attorney General William Barr accused Disney of kowtowing to China. Remember, guys, Walt Disney famously did not like communists. He really did not, but that was a different company.
Well, the communists have a lot of money now.
Yes. So
and Disney wants that sweet Mickey. Mickey wants the sweet money.
Yeah. So they're talking about, basically this comes down to like the TikTok factor and all the stuff going on here. But, they said that there's really not a lot of money over there anymore for Disney and China.
Yeah, they have money. They just don't want to give it to Disney.
No, they're making their own movies now.
They don't need them.
They basically learned what Chinese audiences liked and how to make big budget Hollywood movies, and they decided just to make them themselves.
Some of the shows I watch, there's some Chinese shows that I watch, and they're like the fantasy time period ones. Some of the special effects on those things are better than what you see on the Marvel stuff on Disney Plus.
Yep. So this is going to be interesting, though, because Bob Iger has been trying to, now that he's back, all of a sudden, Disney's movies get released in China again after they weren't released for a while. So they probably are going to ask him. They're probably going to be like, hey, could you tell us?
What'd you promise China, basically?
Yeah, what'd you promise? Hey, how are things going down in Shanghai? Because people have said before they actually think that they have CCP officials running the Shanghai park.
Well, they said the people on their desk have the CCP nameplate.
Yeah. So I'm like,
that shouldn't be a shocker to anyone.
Yeah. So there's definitely going to be some something going on here. So I don't know, guys. I mean, it looks to me like Disney's getting it from all sides. As far as people saying that they're turning away from the woke, they fired Victoria Alonso. She's claiming it's because they wanted to censor movies and censor the gay.
I think it's more because she
was incompetent.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it was. She was incompetent.
Let's put it this way. I think that they're making some changes. I think, but that are going to walk some. It takes people out that are being the most pushy about it, so they can probably meet in the middle because they need to meet in the middle. But do I think that they're going to, walk? There's going to be changes happening, and they're totally aware, and they're going to walk back. I would have thought maybe that was the case until Bob Iger opened his mouth, and it was combative, and he was the way he worded stuff, and basically like, well, we're Disney and freedom of speech, we can do what we want, bitch. It was basically what he said, and I was like, that's concerning because no company should be able to overstep the elected government, whether you like the government or not, because the government changes. Remember, just because a Republican's in office now doesn't mean the Republican's going to be in office 2 years from now or 5 years from now, whatever. I don't know the math off the top of my head. I'm also very ill. But I'm just saying, it changes. But they're elected by the people. And that they're there because they're supposed to be the oversight. And then the companies can just, go behind them and do whatever they want anyway. That's a dangerous thing.
Mickey can take you from behind. Mm-hmm. He's been taking Florida from behind for decades.
And you're supposed to, because if you don't agree with it, you're anti-Florida and you're anti-business.
Because Mickey is Florida. You need to.
That's right. I remember that.
Thank Mickey.
Like the CCP, you thank Mickey.
thank Mickey. You have to thank Mickey because it just would have been some bumpkin swampland if it wasn't for Mickey Mouse. There is a kernel of truth to that for sure. It definitely wouldn't have developed as much as it did.
He really went way too far.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, way to insult half of Florida. Well, most of Florida, actually. But, you know.
I am the law.
Basically.
Pretty much. So
I was like, dude.
So look, regardless of where you come down on this is Orlando Sentinel saying, hey, Disney strips DeSantis of his fairy tale ending good. Regardless of where you come down on this is going to be messy. This is not going to help. It's not going to help Disney.
None of this Disney shouldn't have had this power this long. And Florida should have done something about it much sooner. So
we'll see what happens. We'll see how it affects their stock. Again, I'm not seeing anything terribly exciting being announced. And it seems like...
No, they didn't. They're going to go back to creativity. And their first order of business is to do a live action Moana.
Because that was like the most creative, not even the most creative movie. I'm waiting for Wreck-It Ralph, the live action movie.
I don't know. I'm so over it. It's just so... Everybody's sick of it.
All right. So we're going to wrap this up.
Yeah, because I need to go back to bed.
Okay. Go back to bed. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Guys, we'll talk later.
Bye.
Help support the channel. Go to thereef.support and get early access to podcasts, videos, and other content. That's thereef.support.